And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the latest episode of the Sling'N podcast. I am TJ.
And I'm Kent.
Wow, I had like an awesome intro in my head, and it just completely went to shit because tomorrow's like inauguration day.
What are you gonna say?
And all I don't even remember. It's just gone.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
the amount of insanity that I've been witnessing for the past 3 weeks has been absolute, just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Anyway, how are you?
I mean, so they haven't come to take my guns yet. Jinx, you owe me a podcast. That's fucking fantastic. We're both going to be murdered. No, dude, I don't know. Everybody's telling me the world's on fire, but my wife and my little boy are still beautiful, and I'm still getting paid to teach people to shoot. Like, I could either be really, really downtrodden or feeling pretty good about life, and I choose the latter. So I'm feeling pretty good about life.
That's a damn good outlook to have, man. And frankly, it's kind of the outlook I've been having. But I will admit,
I got it from Mr. Role Model.
Dude, you're too much. If I'm being honest, though, it's while I've been doing my best to stay positive, I cannot sit here and admit to you with a straight face that it's all the goings on while I try to avoid them and just ignore them has been. It still has an impact. Like, it still causes that train of thought to derail once in a while. You know, that intrusive thought line. It's like, oh, wow, I'm so happy. I'm going to focus on the bright side today. And then there's that little penny on the track that's like, and fuck you. It's just, yeah, it is what it is. But you know what? All things considered, I'll tell you what I have been focusing on. And this isn't necessarily firearms related. I have been focusing on taking a little bit more positive control of my investments.
There you go.
Right? See? So trying to play the stock market. And I'm like, you know what? If the world's going to burn to shit, I'm going to try to make some money out of the deal.
Hell yeah.
I mean, love them or hate them. I mean, there's plenty of politicians on both sides of the aisle, regardless of how crooked they are. I mean, they're laughing all the way to the bank. And while I might begrudge them for them violating various oaths of office that they might have taken at various, local, state, and federal levels, they're still laughing all the way to the bank.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've already started, the weight loss has been going good. Work's been going fantastic. You know what? If I'm going to focus on anything for 2021, it's going to be making more money.
Dude, speaking of the weight loss thing, I was at my family doctor today.
You froze up on me, Kent. You're making this awkward because now I have to talk and I can't hear you.
That was weird.
Yeah, it's got to be on your side. I'm smooth sailing all the way over here.
That was crazy pants. I'm sorry about
that.
Okay,
so you went to pick up where we left off. It's that penny on the track. I'm telling you. So you went to your family doctor.
Oh yeah. So they're super pleased with my progress and all that stuff. She was like, hey, I know our numbers are a year old, but is this legit? And I was like,
Well, what was the numbers? How much have you lost so far?
So I'm at 262 now. And they weighed me last year about this time at 230 something, 233.
Wait, say that. I think you got your numbers backwards. They weighed you at 230.
No, 333.
Okay.
My bad.
Okay. I was like, huh?
No.
I know. Look, Kent, I know we don't do math on this podcast. But
No. So,
holy shit, man.
333 was an improvement. Well, before that, yeah, Justin, I carry weight better. Everybody thinks I'm like smaller than I really am. I was 333 in 2019.
Damn.
Yeah.
Damn, dude. That's still fantastic, though.
Yeah, but I was fucking 370 something in 2017, 18. So.
Right. So 370 something, and you're down to what now?
262.
So damn near 100 pounds in the last 2 years?
Mm-hmm.
That fucking damn proud of you, man. That's good shit.
I mean, and I got to go further yet, but the freaking the real story. Not that I ever had bad blood pressure, but still, like, I'm a big dude, right?
Well, like your heart doesn't beat.
Well, yeah, there's that. So they took my blood pressure, and she's just like, "Dude, your blood pressure is 122 over 80." I'm like, yeah, that's pretty good, right? She's like,
say that's healthy, right?
Yeah, but she's like, yeah, but you weigh like 50 pounds more than I do, and mine's freaking 180 something over. I'm like, well, I don't know what to tell you. I'm just,
you put the fork down, lady.
I carry fat better than you do. I'm an expert at it, after all.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, that's true. There's a lot to human physiology between the two genders, that you take a woman that's 5'1", 5'2", hell, even up to 5'8" at 160 pounds, and a dude at 5'8" at 160 pounds, and the body shape will be incredibly different between the two.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
anyway,
but yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, hell, dude, even before I lost all the weight that I've lost so far, I went from, arguably 260 down to 210, 207 ish. I mean, yeah, you can see it, but even when I was at my heaviest, people didn't believe that I weighed what I weighed.
no,
As a matter of fact, last time when you came down here, and we went and trained with Jedi, I was at about 260.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I would argue, it's funny though, I would argue that I look bigger right now than you did then.
That's I'd have to see you in person again. It's been since what, July?
Yeah. We gotta fix that, by the way.
Yeah,
anyway,
I know, right?
we're just on here pecking like two old hens. We do have a show to do after all. You want to
This is a really long intro.
Yeah, this is perfect. It's fine. So we came here today to talk about the future, mainly because we're convinced that there will be one. Right? We don't know what it will be, but we are convinced that there will be one. So people, I'll tell one real quick on my corporate day job, and I don't even care if they hear this one because this one pissed me off so bad. I received an email about performances needing to improve in the workplace, and if they didn't, there may not be a tomorrow. That was the exact verbiage. In other words, it was kind of like a, hey, like if we don't get our shit together, it might be the end for us. And I'm not actually pissed off about the performance metrics or the need for people to improve their performances or anything like that. The thing that got me so much was that, like, dude, you're telling me that your job ending would be no tomorrow for you? Is that what you meant by that? Like, we've really...
What certificate did that person fail to get in Management Training 101?
This was to a group of people that that doesn't even bother me either, because
actually that makes it even worse.
I know, but knowing the people and knowing the circumstances, I can forgive all that. The thing that really bothers me, and this is kind of where I'm going in a long roundabout way, is that the henny penny Debbie Downer, like, the world as we know it might be over just because the wrong president got in, or just because the freaking COVID pandemic, or just because of social unrest, or is your entire worldview so tied to one or two little parts of your life that that's going to end everything for you?
It's funny you mentioned it. So I won't identify the specific family member, but there is a family member that is very close to me, that has been studying really hard to get certifications and try to move upward in management in their job, and ultimately with the intent of either shifting positions in the company that they are with, or finding work elsewhere. And my family member was talking to their boss and said, hey, I'm going to follow suit here. I'm going to quit traveling because everybody else has quit traveling. and you're not beating them up about it. And frankly, I'm tired of taking a ration of shit from you.
Right.
So I will continue to work. I will continue to do my job and service the clients as expected, but you're not going to make me the whipping boy.
Yep.
The manager replied and said, "Well, what are you planning on doing?" The response was essentially, "Well, you're either going to give me what I want, or I'm going to put in my 2 weeks notice." And the response is, "Well, then what are you going to do?" Like, wait, hold on. You think that this job is the only opportunity that I have?
Yeah.
Like, what a shitty outlook you must have on life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's interesting how different things are. One of the things that has happened with this COVID thing, and I've seen this applied and misapplied and whatever, is like, okay, so somebody gets sick, right? And then somebody else gets exposed to that person. And without any symptoms, the individual who got exposed to the person who we know is sick, now all of a sudden gets, takes 3 weeks paid vacation or 2 weeks, essentially gets off of work for 2 weeks.
Right.
Or I've seen where they get like, oh, well, no, you can keep working. You just have to work remotely from home. It's like, well, but nobody else has to do that. Everybody else is expected to travel. Right. So that now, because I told you that I had an exposure with somebody, now all of a sudden something's going to change. Whereas the truth is that most of us, I mean, I know for a fact, I've talked to 6 or 8 people who had COVID positive tests 5, 6, 3, 2, 4, 8 days before I talked to them, depending on which one it was. Right. So based on that standard, I would have, not worked for 3 weeks, 8 separate times? Like, what's the, you know what I mean? What's the equivalency there? The answer is there really isn't any. Just doesn't make any sense. And, worse yet, we've allowed the reaction to this and the overreaction to this to just destroy our lives and our businesses and all this kind of stuff, while at the same time not even doing a good enough job responding to what is the potential real threat from an actual virus. Like, because it is a real thing. Just like the flu is a real thing and 100 other things are real things. We've over dramatized it to the point now where it's not coming back. There's no going back from where we went.
Well, and that's one of my biggest issues with it. And I had this discussion with a colleague at work, and my colleague had expressed real concern, as I'm sure many Americans and people all over the world are expressing, in that sorrow and being downtrodden. And my colleague has actually lost friends. There were family members of friends that had passed because of complications from COVID, and family members direct that had passed because of complications from COVID. And there was legitimate concern. My argument is the way the rest of the world is reacting to it, or more specifically here in the US, the way people are reacting to it with a mass hysteria based on essentially things that we don't know to be true.
Right.
They can't get the story straight. They can't.
Right.
And while I want to feel sympathy and empathy and, caring, the outrage of the double standards and the half truths and the inaccurate sciences and the flub numbers. Like, I learned this little factoid. Okay. So the most common testing for COVID is done with a nasal swab, right? They go in, they scrape the front of they give you a freaking frontal lobotomy with a Q-tip, and they tell you if you're positive or not, right? I had seen reports, and there was a YouTube clip, or not YouTube, a clip on Facebook, I guess, of a business owner going off on a health department worker talking about this, and it actually prompted me to do some research on my own. And come to find out, the guy was speaking the truth, at least in this case. The inventor of that test even went on record to say that it is not an accurate test. To test for a positivity result through the nose is like testing your doormat versus the floor that you just mopped. Just because it's on your doormat doesn't mean it's in your house.
Right.
Right? Because I mean, think about what your nose is. It's filled with
What
mucous membrane.
else is
It is a filter on your
Yeah.
face.
Yeah.
Right? So you run a swab up through there, it's passing through everything on the planet that you've breathed in. And all of a sudden you're positive or negative. I mean, now to be fair, that has resulted in more false negatives than false positives, right? Generally, people that have been positive, but at the same time, that if planes were that bad with their reliability, you wouldn't fly.
Right.
Okay,
right.
It's just sorry, it's just the way.
Hey, listen, Spirit Airlines has a $99 special, but 20% of the people end up dying in a pirate plane crash. You'd be like,
yeah,
well,
maybe.
I'm gonna go American, I think.
Yeah, it's only a $30 upcharge, and it's less leg room, but less fatal.
Yeah,
I'll
chew on my knees for 3 hours out of Phoenix in order to not die.
And I think that's what bothers me about the whole thing is the lack of consistency, the lack of and consistent outrage too. If we're going to freak out over COVID, there should be an equal amount of freak out over things like the flu, pneumonia, measles, all these other diseases that have either been abated or mitigated, and seen a resurgence recently with the anti-vax movement.
Yeah.
Right. Let's go even more real. Let's get away from the diseases. How many of the people that are freaking out about COVID-19, like the irrational freak out, are actually driving slower, always wearing seatbelts, always using their turn signal, and not texting behind the wheel?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Add to that list alcohol use, drug use.
Yeah.
Fucking yeah.
There were people drinking gasoline out of bags. Okay.
Right. Yeah. That's just Tuesday in Florida, though.
At that point, let's just remove the warning labels from everything and call it a day. So anyway, but the podcast, this episode is about the future, looking forward and what it holds. So, Kent, I think we would be remiss if, before we get into the firearms aspect of it, what are some of your ways ahead? What does your roadmap look like moving forward? So let's say conservatively for the next 2 to 4 years.
Well, for one thing, and most importantly, there's a little human being who really, really, really needs everything his daddy can give him in that time frame, because these 2 to 4 years will arguably the most important in his development in his whole life, right?
Yes, those years are what are called the tender years.
Right. So that would be priority number one. Keeping his mother married to me would be priority number 2, which is an often. I mean, if let's be honest. If you were her, you'd be like, I don't know. Maybe Mama was right. Maybe I could have done a little better. Like,
and those are her words.
Yeah.
You don't need a marriage counselor. You need a hostage negotiator.
No, dude. I mean, honestly,
for your safety.
I know. I'm well aware.
This is no slight against Sophie at all, because I'm afraid of her.
Yeah. No. Yes, I am too. But in all seriousness, right? Like, I know your first priority is the same thing. Our family's our first priority, so we're gonna do things that matter for them. For me, firearms are very much an important part of these next couple of years. Things with SDI are not slowing down. If anything, they're remaining steady or picking up. So I hope to be continuing to teach in that regard collegiately for the foreseeable future. That's really good news. There are no signs of Green Mountain Defense slowing down anytime soon. I'm mildly to pretty concerned about the ability to supply that business with its essential supply, mainly ammo. But even that, like, the next year or so is going to be okay regardless, and then we may have a problem, or maybe not, or we may just have to change our business model to adapt to new market and climate changes, just like every other goddamn business. Not for nothing, but those that are good will be good regardless of market conditions and times. So maybe we just be better business people. So there's that too. And then after that, it's continue to improve my personal physical fitness, continue to get better as a shooter. Not much changes. I certainly, a lot of really terrible things would have to come to pass in a very short order for me to actually envision what a lot of people seem to be so willing to just talk about freely, like it's nothing, which is like, you really want to talk to me about Civil War? You really listen to all the things that matter to us in our lives. You want to throw all that crap away because you're mad at the guy in the big White House? Really? Okay. I mean, I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I'm not, it's not lost on me. I really and honest to God believe that this go around there was some serious fraud in the election. I'll always believe that. But I also don't believe that Donald Trump is Jesus or is supposed to be our savior, right? I don't believe
I mean, the last 4 years, at least with regard to the Second Amendment community, have proven anything but.
Yeah, I mean, he did a lot of decently good things for a very few key business alliances and allegiances and stuff like that. There are pieces of the business community that are pretty happy with what he did. But the truth is if you look at the last 20 years of my life, the guy in the Oval Office really had not a whole hell of a lot to do with my trajectory or my successes or my failures or right. I mean,
yeah.
How much did the president really have an effect on my life and my success? And I'll tell you this much, man. The people that are good and smart and legit and intelligent, I mean, there's a couple dudes. Here's Frank from Apache's in our chat. Justin's in our chat. You're here. I'm here. There's 4 dudes right there that I can click through and I can go, that guy's going to be fucking fine. Right? Don't much matter what happens. You know what I mean? We all know those people in our lives who persevere. I just talked to a real dear friend of mine last night through text. I haven't talked to her as much because we hung out more before the end of the world. Her and I, in a lot of ways, probably believe a little bit differently politically. I'll tell you right now, she's a super smart individual. She's going to be just fine.
Mm-hmm.
Really, most of the people that you care about that are going to be all right are going to be all right. Most of the people that you know in your life that are poor souls and downtrodden and are always having problems and, who can't get their ass up and go to work and get things figured out, right? Come on, man. Like it don't matter who the president is. They're always going to be not having stuff work out for them.
Mm-hmm.
We make our own luck. Anyway, What about you?
Yeah.
Your priority over the next 4 years is to buy out Elon Musk after you take the rest of the technology industry. Is that right?
If that's the case, I'll be buying YouTube too.
Oh, good.
No, so I mean, dude, if you had Elon Musk money, come on. If not, you could start a viable competitor.
Would you buy YouTube just for us to be able to continue to do fuck around shit on YouTube? Because if so,
I wouldn't. I would. I don't know if I'd give them the satisfaction. I'd do it for everybody else. It's. I have governed myself on a very simple principle for the last several years, and that is, the long and short of it anyway, is free men don't ask permission. And Kent, you and I have had this conversation before, but when you look back on it, aside from the time that I wore the uniform, My day-to-day life really hasn't been all that impacted by whoever was in office.
Nope.
And that's because I don't allow it to be that way. I govern myself in within the confines of what is considered normal human decency and, moral values of not going out of my way to hurt anybody. Not stealing, no victim, no crime type deal, right? But at the same time, even if I lived completely within the confines of the law, right? Whatever was written on paper, regardless because if you're going to live by that rule, you have to live by every rule that's ever been penned, right? So if I'm going to live in Tennessee, then I need to also abide by the laws that are in Colorado or Nebraska or whatever pick a state, right? So that's why I take an issue with the term law-abiding citizen.
Yeah,
right?
dude.
Because everyone's a law-abiding citizen until they make a law saying, if you don't kill a puppy every Sunday in front of your children, you're going to go to jail. Well, guess what? You're not a law-abiding citizen so much anymore, are you?
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, that's almost reductum absurdum, and you don't even have to go that far with it. Like,
right.
Honest to God, if you really looked at the shit that's on the books federally, no shit. And, I mean, we can make it about states' rights, but what's that stat? There's that stat going around that the average guy in his 30s has committed X number of felonies and doesn't even realize it.
Yeah. It's like Frank in the chat saying I'm a felon in Cali, just saying, and New York.
Yeah.
Simple response: we're all felons somewhere.
Right, but even there are people who have violated. I don't want to call them legit laws, but there are people in many states who have violated federal law in one way or another.
There is a guy somewhere in this country that is making unregistered, fully automatic weapons and suppressors out of oil filters. Okay. There is somebody somewhere is doing, it's 5:00 somewhere. It's America somewhere, right? There's somebody doing that shit right now. Hell, look, the kids from Columbine were building bombs in their fucking basement.
I know.
Okay.
I know. I'm not even talking about that though. I'm talking there's some dude that bought and illegally developed a piece of land, quote unquote,
right,
that violated some federal, like there's a guy who committed felony land development that was illegal, that built on a fucking Indian reservation or some shit and didn't even know it. You know what I mean?
He cut down a bush that was inhabited by an endangered desert spider.
Something along those lines. There's a million of these things where it's like, dude, if you're going to tell me, like, hey, man, I'm 100% absolutely by the book, law abiding, and always have been. Okay, let's go through the things that most of us do and have done. You talked about the driving thing. Okay, homie, absolutely 64.999 miles an hour. You bet your bottom dollar. No, bullshit. You're doing 80 up in that motherfucker.
What's that, a smart car? Oh, we're going past this sumbitch.
Yeah. Like, let's get that out of the window. Then you're going to tell me, whoever it is that you are, you're going to tell me you never touched a drop of booze before you're 21. Okay, Scooter. You're going to tell me that you never, ever, ever, and I mean ever, never, ever, not once, not ever, not never, ever spark no devil's lettuce up. Never once.
The fact that you went that long to wind up to something and call it devil's lettuce. Jesus Christ.
I know. That was comedically timed intentionally, right? You never sparked up no devil's lettuce. I mean, how many dudes, this is a real one. This one happens. How many 16-year-old dudes do something with their 15-year-old girlfriend that would probably have them in jail today?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, how many guys like that and I know, like that, how the hell, all that kind of stuff. How many people, fish and game violations that are like, you caught a yellow-bellied speckled pinkus trout. Pinkest trout. I just made that up. Someday he'll see this. That'd be amazing. Imagine it though. Like imagine a scenario where you violate some like, oh my god, I accidentally shot the wrong moose or some shit. You're now the guy in society who like you're gonna put me in the same building where they put rapists and murderers for real, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, I guess that's the scoop. I don't see the difference. And I mean, obviously, this is a gun podcast, so what we're not alluding to, because we're going to straight up really talk about it, is if there's going to be federal mandates on firearm stuff, all you have to do is look at Connecticut and Rhode Island and New York and Massachusetts and Colorado and California and blah, 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 and look at the compliance or total lack thereof on the stuff that's in place there.
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking a fringe group of 20 dudes who said, fuck the government, we're gonna go all David Koresh. No. We're talking millions of products that were sold in these places.
The entire state.
Yeah.
or no, let's keep it federal. Keep it federal. Bump stocks.
Right. How many dudes right now?
How many of those have been turned in?
Yeah, like 11 ever, maybe.
If that.
Yeah. That's the point. Like you look at these things and you go, okay, so they're really gonna take the time. They're really gonna push this. I had this conversation. I had a conversation in person today with a lady who was not advocating for nor against, who was actually generally asking me questions because she knew I knew this stuff. She goes, "What would you do if they registered your magazines?" I'm sorry. What do you mean? What would you do if you registered your magazines? So I pulled my spare mag out of my pants, not the one that was in my gun, the spare one. And I handed it to her. And she looked at it like it was fucking, a mixture between a golden bullion and a snake. Like I couldn't tell if she was afraid of it or in awe of the fact that I had one of these.
She gave you the Forrest Whitaker eye.
Right. And I'm like, yeah, that's a 20-round mag. What do you think of that? And I said, look at that for me and register. She's looking all over. I said, how do I register that? She's looking at it. I said, what's the serial number of that magazine, ma'am? Oh, it doesn't have one. It was manufactured with no.
Yeah, none of them do.
Right. It was manufactured. She's, is this one of those ghost gun magazines they're talking about? I'm like, no, fucking no. The truth is that none of these magazines, Magpul puts date codes on some magazines, but none of them have, SN 237485943. Like, no. Right? So these magazines, how are you gonna go ahead and, you're gonna register these? Sure. Kent has the 3 Glock magazines that came with his Glock. And maybe others. Or not.
Yeah. Jesus Christ. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. So let's come back to that train. But I mean, I'm going to continue to live my life the way I've been living it. I'm going to, as you mentioned, make sure my family's provided for, and I'm going to enjoy the things that make me a free person. And that is, I can essentially go do what I want to do.
Yeah.
As long as you're not going out of your way to hurt others or cause a scene, you're probably going to be fine. The problem that everybody has with that whole concept is they forget the other part of the equation. And that is the self-governance piece.
Yep.
Right? If you stay to yourself, no one's going to know you exist. Right? It's the, I think in our example, we talked about, fear is what actually takes away your freedom, right? Or the thought of the fear of repercussion.
Yep.
If you were to walk down the street, let's just say to bring the audience up to speed on our conversation, nudist colony, right? You are a nudist. You want to be free in your skin, right? You do so in the privacy of your own home, go for it. You walk down the street in broad daylight at lunchtime, Probably going to cause a scene.
Yep.
Really going to be hard for you to not fall into some repercussion with that.
Yep.
Do so in the privacy of the great outdoors in the middle of nowhere where there are no other witnesses or like, seriously, what at that point, the only thing keeping your clothes on is the fear of repercussion.
Yeah.
Right?
No, absolutely.
The same thing. That's why there's still so many drug overdoses. Illicit drugs have been federally and still in many states ridiculously illegal for human consumption, barring, of course, marijuana, which isn't a drug. But your hard drugs, the ones that really cause overdoses and kill people, methamphetamines, opioids, all that other shit. People are still being found dead in the privacy of their own home. Now, if they're in the middle of a school parking lot, or if they're in the food court of your local mall, it's going to be frowned upon. But that doesn't stop them from doing the illegal activity.
Being dead and naked is frowned upon in this establishment.
Well, you see my point, right? So it doesn't really stop it. I mean, these are people that still do what they want. And they have no regard for human decency or the lives of those around them, regardless of the lives they destroy. And of course, to be clear, I deplore the usage of hard narcotics and those drugs that not only, I mean, you want to do harm to yourself. That's on you, dude. That's between you and your God. But those are also drugs, and that's one of the reasons why I have such a problem with things like methamphetamines. It's one of the sole drugs that are produced in the United States that causes so many deaths, right? We're killing ourselves. You can't blame that on the opium production in Afghanistan or the Black Tower heroin and crystal or crack cocaine and stuff coming across the border from Mexico or whatever have you. That crystal meth and shit like that's typically made in the United States.
The other thing is you look at some of these like some of these bigger companies like Jack Daniels comes to mind. I wonder what they did during Prohibition because they damn sure didn't close up shop.
Fun factoid: Lynchburg, Tennessee is still a dry county.
Right. They
cannot sell Jack Daniels in the town that their distillery is located.
Right. Well, I mean, is that any different than Colt and Remington and Marlin and all these different gun companies in Connecticut, New York, and Mass? Like, it's the same thing. But my point being, here are these iconic American industries that have been alive and well for the entire time of our existence and before, all sorts of various people propose to govern them and relegate and regulate them. There you go, Jordan. Buffalo Trace and medicinal whiskey and, look at medicinal marijuana. That's a good example too. I'm going to identify my assault weapons as fucking medicinal rifles and we'll be all set. Like my point is, I kind of feel like the dude in the back of the Jeep at fucking Jurassic Park right now with the drop of water and the whole life will find a way. Like, it's not as though there will never again be mass manufacturing of firearms stuff. Like, give me a break.
Eventually, the Democrats will find a way to breed with one another.
Oh, we stay away from politics mostly on this show, but that was a solid one.
I'll slip the jab every time I get a chance, man.
That was a good one. That was a good one.
Well, we clone them with frog DNA. That was the problem.
They just became so androgynous they can't figure out which bathroom to use, but it'll be all right. They'll figure it out in 20 years. No, but honestly, man, I've seen so many dudes just freaking,
losing their fucking mind.
Oh my God, the world's gonna end, and there'll never be primers again. There'll never be ammo again. There'll never be this. There'll never be that. And I'm like, dude, if I need ammo that bad, and the world really does go that shitty, one of two things: A, I'll just come take it from you, Or B, there's a National Guard armory 20 minutes up the road. I'm pretty sure I know where to find it. And those dudes are guarding that motherfucker with aim points on upside down. So,
I mean, honestly, you wouldn't even have to concern. You'd be like, "Hey, bro, I got
Yeah.
I got a case of monsters and some
Yeah.
cigarettes. It's prison barter."
Just put monsters, cigarettes, and a mildly attractive 6 that would be a 10 in that town out in the middle of the field. And every National Guard dude will just something will get pregnant, something will get smoked.
So did you hear about my 28% APR on my 2019 brand new-ish Camaro? Anyone who lives outside of a military, or anybody who lives in a military base town knows exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, I mean, look, all joking aside, be calm, continue to be good to one another, and you'll be amazed at what magical things happen. And for the love of God, yeah, I haven't actually turned on the news.
Yeah,
for almost a year now.
Yeah.
And if anything, my life's just gotten better.
Yeah, that whole freaking I will admit to one vice, which is Facebook political discussions and arguments.
Yeah, see, I haven't even been doing that since I started a fight with the local county school board.
My buddy, I maybe not even should say his name on here. I get a buddy in Tennessee right now who's damn near gotten himself arrested a couple times arguing with the Board of Health. 2 hours to the east of you.
Now I will say this: there are certain times, right now, and we posted this. So let's use this as a transitional period to talk about certain things that you can do politically. You know, if I think we can all agree that
you do that.
At least neither you nor I give a shit about who's in the White House, right? So, folks, I'd invite you all to head on over to Facebook and check out the Sling'N podcast page, where we have posted a link to a news article that actually draws parallels between the gun industry and the marijuana industry. Again, I'd invite you all to read that article for yourselves, but the premise of the article is actually quite interesting. Marijuana is still federally illegal. It's still a class 1 drug, above cocaine, actually, if I remember correctly, or at least on par with cocaine based on the DEA registry. Of the states that have legalized it, the federal government really doesn't have a whole leg to stand on because there is a lack of local municipal support for those laws. A lot of the people that you hear getting hemmed up and sent to jail for, drug offenses and even firearms offenses, standard capacity magazines that are quote unquote high for that jurisdiction, are being tried and punished on the premise of state and local laws. The ATF ain't coming in and pulling over Jim Bob in his 94 F-250, finding a 17-round Glock magazine in the glove box that he forgot from the range that he went to last year, right? Not a bullet in sight, and throwing him in jail because of federal firearms offenses. He's being jailed and prosecuted under state and local laws. So, if anything, that should encourage you that the importance of any political activism or lobbying that you might do as an individual or a group of individuals should be focused where it might actually make a difference, and that is your state and local laws or your state and local legislations.
No, man, absolutely. The truth is that most of what affects your daily life happens within a 100-mile radius of where you live.
Yeah.
In all honesty, maybe even in some places, maybe even a lot less than that.
Well, so I'll give you an example. So there was a gentleman who was while he was actually running for sheriff in the county that I live in.
Oh, I remember this. Yeah.
Yeah. While he was campaigning, actually had the fortitude to knock on my door and ask to speak to me at my dinner table. And he and I sat there and we had an honest to God conversation about what his plans were for the county, what his plans would be as sheriff, his policies that he'd like to see implemented, and so on and so forth. And of course, we came across the topic of firearms. Not just from, a confiscation aspect of it, but, from a school safety aspect of it. We were, sadly, as is typical, we were on the heels year over year of, another tragic school shooting.
Yep.
And of course, the bolstering or improvements to school resource officer programs was part of the topic as well. I have been able to maintain contact with this individual. Sadly, he did not win that election. But even even talking to him, no longer as the candidate, has even said, he goes, look, man, he's like, while the current sheriff, the incumbent who I was running against, and I disagreed on a lot of things, policy wise, politically, we're pretty still well aligned. And at the end of the day, should gun confiscation actually come down, they're going to need local law enforcement to actually help it.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think that, I'm not trying to put words in his mouth, but he spoke with some confidence and assuredness that he knew his counterpart well enough to say that our Second Amendment rights were just as safe as they would have been under him. And that gave me, some peace of mind, if you will. But yeah, it's state and local. Like you said, Kent, within 100 miles of where you live is the laws and the legislations that affect you the most.
Yep. And for me, I just so happen to live within a 15-minute drive of my state's capital. So, and I've already done some going over there and some talking and some rallying and some, supporting and whatever. But more importantly, my local Dempublicrat rep, a nice lady named Cheryl Delosier. I can't figure out if she's a Democrat or Republican or not. She's on
I think the term you're looking for is centrist.
Yeah, she's a Dempublicrat or a Republican Dem. Here's what I got to say about her, though. To her credit, number one, we've had numerous email discussions, and I will say, honest to God, email discussions, not just
the pre-can. Thank you for contacting the office of your local representative. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, none of that stuff. Like, honest to God, you could tell it was a real, honest to God conversation, and it's pretty deep and stuff. And here's the thing about her. She kind of campaigned on the idea that, like, hey, here I am as a person. This is what I believe on this topic. This is what I believe on this topic. And she really is a centrist. That's what she honestly is.
Mm-hmm.
I got to give her credit, man. She talks to her constituents. She listens. She hears us out. I'm a business owner in her constituency, just as others are of other industries and other things that matter to her. And she's always handled me with respect. I just wonder how many of her there are out there that folks have not given an opportunity. Even if so if you're sitting there and your local representation is a D, and you think, oh, they'll never listen to me because I'm an R, or if it's the other way, fine. I don't know, man. Give a person a chance. At least try to hit them up with a, hey, this is my opinion on this topic. You might be surprised, and I will tell you that I've had, good relationships with people in the state house in Vermont. I've had good relationships with people here in PA. Everywhere I've lived as an adult man that gave a shit, with a little effort on my part, I was able to talk to some of these people from both parties. What does that tell me? That tells me that there's probably a lot of people who are caught up in their tribalism and who are not willing to talk to somebody that they see as being the other, whatever the other might be.
I guarantee you got farther in those emails to at least some type of, even if not a resolution that was to your favor or liking, certainly an understanding of where they actually stood with transparency, which is a lot more than we can say for the jackwagons that decided to storm the Capitol on January 6th.
This is my point, right? So we get so clustered up in our tribalism, and we get, they're not listening, they're not this, they're not that. And you think to yourself, well, like any good relationship, and that's all the world is really, it's just a bunch of relationships. How much did we try to make the communication? How much did we really reach out to those individuals? I would ask the people that stormed the Capitol, at least half of whom were Antifa plants, by the way, I'm certain of it. But those that were dead ass, 100%, dyed in the wool, blue
Trump waving supporters,
blue flag freaking
yep.
thin blue line Trump 100% people. How much work did they really do to try to reach out to any given representative? And there's going to be somebody who can, Trump card me on this, but I'm bumping, I've been emailing my rep every day for a month, and I've been calling, and I've been this, and I've been that. I just couldn't get through.
Well, you know what? I would even take that line of questioning a step further. How many, and if that were the case, and they did actively put out that olive branch of email communication, didn't start with "Listen here, you some bitch."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
right. Because I'm gonna tell you right. I mean, if someone sends you an email like that,
yep.
Even if you respond to it, it sure as hell isn't going to be, constructive.
I'll tell
You're
you,
going to fire back with something just as full of hatred and vitriol, if not ignore it completely. So if you're going to come at somebody like that who has to listen to that shit all day, every day, I'm not surprised they didn't respond to you.
Yeah, I'll take it a step further for you. So if your version of emailing people about gun rights is going to the NRA's website and copying the fucking drivel that they put out there for you to send to all your reps, and you just Control V and fucking send that to every single person, and you think you're helping, you are Ralph Wiggum. Like, I'm helping. Like, you're just not. Like, these people would much rather you send them an email and say, "Hello, my name's Ken Howard, owner and chief instructor of Green Mountain Defense LLC, here in your jurisdiction, district blah, 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 blah. I am really your constituent. These are my real concerns, and you can call me to discuss them if you so see fit. I would really appreciate a response. Thank you." I mean, you don't have to be as TJ and I both wrote opinion pieces back to the NRA, to the ATF. Well, hell, they're kind of the same person, it seems. To the ATF's, what do you call it? Pistol brace thing, right? And
yeah, we participated in the comment period.
Right. TJ's first response to that was way better than mine was. Way more elegantly written and way more detailed, way more professional. And mine still wasn't, well, fuck you then. But it was just more, hey, I'm tired of this and this is how I feel. But it was still legit. And I went back and took a better crack at it and all that stuff. My point being, how many of those? I mean, we did a good thing. We got a victory there for now. They heard from somewhere between 20 and 80,000 of us, depending on who you listen to.
No, I saw the numbers on the way. It was upwards of 80. It was like 87,000, I think, something like that.
Right. I had seen that on a screenshot. I just didn't know if it was,
No,
anyway.
I saw. Yeah, no, from the website. They only updated the numbers every 24 hours. That's why everyone was, 4 days into the $20,000 or the 20,000 number screenshot, they finally updated it, and it was like 80 some odd thousand.
Gotcha. My point being, like, that's great. They heard from 80,000 of us. I wonder how many of those were well reasoned at all, and how much of it was just sheer numbers. What I'm starting to see, which is I hope is a positive trend, is especially in the gun arena. I've seen several people do a very good job of eloquently stating facts and very, very, very professionally approaching the topic. We really need to get away from the slamming the fist on the table, saber rattling, my rights, and we need to get away from the whole, that's not a clip, it's a magazine, and blah, 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 blah.
Dude, that's one thing I wish would go away in 2021.
Sure.
And I'll give you a perfect example of it. And this is what bothers the shit out of me from these high-paid, influential, right? I'm not even trying to diss on them for being well paid, but they are influential, at least to the masses, to an extent to which certain industries believe they deserve a high salary. And they get hung up on some mundane kindergarten bullshit. And I'm going to give you a perfect example. Colion Noir. Yeah. If you want to see exactly what I'm talking about, watch his interview with the mouth breathers over at TMZ.
Yep.
They start hitting him with the typical talking points from people that align more with on the gun control side, right? And I can't even say that they're staunchly Democrat either, because there's gun control on both sides, folks. So people that align staunchly with the pro-gun control argument, and they start talking about using terms like assault weapon and clip and all this other stuff. And even somebody as professional and as articulate as Colion Noir, after all, he is an attorney, gets caught up in wasting the airtime that he has with nitpicking the semantics.
Yep.
This is how that conversation should go. Why do you think assault weapons belong on the streets of America? The response should better not start with, well, the definition of an assault rifle. No, because we have a Second Amendment right granted to us by our Creator that we have the right and the authority as the people to defend against a tyrannical government and tyrannical rule, whether that be from a federal government or a state government. Next question.
Yep.
But you really think assault rifle? Yes, assault rifles. Yes, we should own them. Next question. Why is that so difficult? Why do we have to get mired down in the quicksand that is semantics?
Yeah,
because it's the same argument. It's over and over again, dude. It's the same time. Every single time one of our mouthpieces gets in front of their mouthpieces, they start talking in circles around the same dumb, hair-splitting bullshit terminology.
Yeah, and it's a different... then the next line in the argument is, why do you need whatever? Why do you need that? Why do you need this? Why do you need? And it's easy to get into the why do you need a Corvette, or why do you need a quill pen, or why do you need a laptop for the second or for the First Amendment? It's like,
no, I'll give a real simple argument here, simple one. Take every gun control argument that you've ever heard. Yep. Tell that person to replace everything that is akin to a firearm or anything Second Amendment related and replace it with speech.
Yep, absolutely.
Oh, you want to speak in public? Oh, well, you're going to have to file for a permit, pay a $200 tax stamp, and you're going to have to wait 90 to 180 to 365 days for approval before you're allowed to speak.
Yep.
The amount of ridiculousness that enters their mind that you will see scroll across their eyes like a marquee at the bottom, at the bottom of a news ticker, is exactly what goes through our mind every time they talk about this shit. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, think about that for a second. You want to sit here and talk to me. Why am I always on the defensive? How about you put yourself in my position for a second? Why should you be allowed to speak? Because I would argue that there's been more speech that has invoked violence than there are firearms.
That's not even a close argument. That's historically well defined. That's fact.
Firearms are just a vehicle in which the violence is activated, right? The incitement of the violence comes from the freedom, from the expression of a thought or idea.
Imagine if there was a permitting system. Well, hell, Jesus.
Although I would argue there should be an application process for people to speak in public.
Well, we didn't go through
at least an aptitude test.
So think about this for a minute. We didn't go through one for this here podcast, did we? Right?
No.
And now, if you really think about it, some of the biggest companies on planet Earth, mainly YouTube and Apple, and then a couple, your Spotify's and your, Spreaker, Stitcher, or whatever. We're on all these different things. Here we are having a whole podcast about firearms and freedom and and civil disobedience and all these other topics. And right now, everyone in these spaces is terrified of deplatforming. Everybody's afraid that their channel or their following or their whatever is going to get taken from them, and their voice is going to be shut down. Further proving your speech argument is just like, man, imagine if your freedoms and abilities to speak to anyone were as restricted as my abilities to defend myself. We'd have already had 3 uprisings. We'd be on Civil War number 5 by this point if we hadn't gotten it right.
So the counterpoint to the argument is, okay, well, that's not the problem. Like our speech isn't in jeopardy. Okay, so how do you plan on preventing that the conversation to be realized that there's a pro speech control movement? How are you going to defend yourself and your ability to speak? How are you going to prevent somebody else's will from being forcibly thrust upon you?
Well, I mean, I would. That's a great point. And the other point is that I hate to say it, but yeah, there is absolutely. There's already thought police. There's already a ton of deplatforming. There's already certain things that you can't say in schools. There's certain things you can't say professionally. There's certain beliefs you can't have. There's certain, all that has to happen is you're either labeled a misogynist or a racist, and all of a sudden you've been canceled.
I would argue that's a false equivalency, though.
No.
Because it's the court of public opinion versus actual, agents of the government throwing you in a cage.
Sure. But my point is, we don't have to look too far for examples of where people's speech has been limited unfairly and unjustly.
Give me a solid example.
Dude, Trump is the easiest example going right now. The leader of the free world can't post on Twitter. Are you fucking kidding me?
But he can snap his fingers and have a massive media cameras in front of his face.
Sure. I'm aware, but my point is there's already a group of people who are willing to accept that it's okay for these couple places or people or entities or whatever to limit speech. It's okay for Facebook, it's okay for YouTube, it's okay for Apple, it's okay for whoever to limit your speech. And yet the same people who say those things use the conservative free market principle to try to push their argument. And you sit here and you say, no, man, the next thing that happens is the government mandates what the tech companies will allow and won't allow.
Or I think
the same thing.
I think more specific, and we can touch on this topic more. But let's look at the whole Trump being censored and all that stuff on these private entities, right? The same thing could easily happen to this podcast.
Yeah. We might be talking into a vacuum right now. We don't fucking know.
Exactly. But the reality of the situation is, speaking of moving forward, everyone's like, oh, well, big governments, emboldening them to do this. I would argue against that. I would say they're not emboldening it, but they're certainly not doing anything to check it. Now, is the byproduct of that emboldening their activities and their behavior? Yeah, okay, sure. I'll concede that point. But that's why as soon as the Senate race in Georgia was called is when they started blocking his whole family. Like right. anybody that had a last name TRUM.
Right. There's some guy named Larry. There's some poor motherfucker named Larry Trump in Arkansas right now
that can't get a Twitter account to save his life.
The fuck, I can't get on Twitter. Yeah. Honey, all I want to do is talk about corn and beating up women, and they won't let me on a goddamn Twitter.
Right.
Right.
Oh, actually, if the fictional Larry Trump, ever did decide to have a Twitter account, all he would have to do is, peddle kitty porn, and he would be totally fine.
Exactly, right?
Because, we can shut down anybody that has anything to do or say or think about, the antithesis of the liberal agenda. But child porn? No, it's still running rampant.
Well, I mean, when you look at these examples,
figure that shit out.
When you look at these examples, the leader of the free world is not on Twitter right now, but the actual recruiting department for ISIS still is.
Yeah.
Like, you're telling me there's not a little hypocrisy there to point out?
Yeah, but see, that's the issue there. It's not so much that Trump was banned; it's the double standard.
Sure.
I think that's where the real outrage lies. I mean, does anybody really give a shit that Trump's on Twitter? No, at least I don't. I sure as hell don't.
No.
In my opinion, I don't think that the president or any public figure should be on fucking Twitter.
Yeah,
right. Just from a matter of national security and professionalism, they need to stay the hell away from the toxic, oozing pools of pus and bile that is social media, right? Yeah. And they need. I think public officials need to restrict themselves to a very set of specific, standardized methods of distribution. More so, also, to our point, for the issuance of laws, I don't want to be in court somewhere and be like, Your Honor, I had no idea that was a law. Well, it was published on Twitter. I'm sorry, I don't get my laws distributed by fucking Twitter.
Right.
Your Honor.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that's one of the main reasons, because it's being put on a pedestal for being more than what it is.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I mean, how many of these
social media should not be misconstrued as the town square or the public square.
Yeah, and it's become that for so very many. And the problem is that you find when you look at your algorithm and you look at your feed, you have one of two things occurring. The first thing you have occurring is this drastic echo chamber that happens where you only see people that think and talk and act and post like you do. You very rarely see dissenting opinions at all. So that you end up with a bunch of people that just agree with each other all the time. Or you see where the algorithm intentionally pits people against each other in hopes of creating drama.
Right.
You see a lot of that too.
They're the puppet masters. The puppet masters.
Right. And
to be clear, let's talk about Parler for a second. Oh dear God.
Right. Right.
Let alone the fact that you want to talk about a cesspool, right? Oh my God. I've been on Parler for over a year. I jumped on board right when it came out.
Same. I know.
I could not bother to use that as a viable form of consumption of rational thought and topics of interest. Now, I will say this: the unfettered lack of censorship,
right,
that was abound, was appreciated.
Yep.
Right. Okay. Cool. But oh dear God, someone needs to turn the squelch down, because holy shit.
Yeah, I mean, when you log on to social media and you're met with a post from a guy who's like, "No, you don't understand. Xenu and the Clockwork Elves are working together with Spider-Man and the fucking," you're like, "The fuck did you just say?"
If Alex Jones was a social media app,
yeah, like the Spider-Man and the Clockwork Elves have gotten together to figure out that the lizard people and the Clintons and the Clintonian Empire is going to take over the. I'm like, wait a minute.
Are you a real person?
Yeah, it's like, oh God, my head, like, oh, it's like the worst best Joe Rogan podcast episode, just on repeat all the time, and just refresh your feed, and it just gets dumber and dumber and dumber. You're like, I have degrees. I am a smart person. What am I?
So, but at the same, what I'm getting at with that is that I encourage all of our listeners and viewers to approach social media exactly like that. It is noise. Yes, it can be used for good. You can use it to stay in touch with friends and family, which is what social media was fucking originally intended to do, right? But
Actually, it was originally a college dating app.
That was the Facebook, also a stolen idea, but we'll digress on that point. Isn't it funny how like some of the best ideas are stolen?
Oh yeah.
Like, it's weird, isn't it? McDonald's. You ever see the movie The Founder? Oh dear God. Totally stolen. Whatever. Anyway, I digress. But they're all equally bad, but people are again putting them on these pedestals of the source of truth and all that is just and right with the world. No. The opposite. Whatever happened to don't believe everything you hear and only half of what you see.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I mean,
I thought you'd like that.
Yeah.
I mean,
you know what the sad thing is? You're not the first person to say that. I have no idea what the whole Q thing is going on right now, but whatever.
Yeah, you could be him.
That being said, Parler's still not working.
Here's the thing, though, right? Like, so the thing about Parler that pisses me off is essentially this. And again, right? So the reason Parler is not up, for those of you who have not been paying attention, is that, hey, look, Amazon Web Service is their provider for server space.
Was
right, and AWS took them off their platform because Amazon can't support violence. Except for in all the TV shows they peddle and produce, all the books they sell, all the DVDs that you can have drop shipped to your door, all the knives and throwing stars and ninjas, all the fucking, you can look to literally millions, if not billions of examples on the Amazon network of things that could be construed as being or supporting violence. You can go buy a copy of Mein Kampf and God knows what any other violent propaganda right through Amazon, but somehow when it's viewed as conservative violent propaganda, now it's not allowed.
Again, the double standard is the problem.
Exactly. It's not if you were going to kick out all the terrible, then, if Bezos came out and said, listen, man, if you ain't selling pink, fluffy puppy dog pillows and nail polish, you ain't on my thing. This toxic masculinity shit is not going to stand. I won't allow it. All right, then. If that was going to be your deal from the get-go, and we all knew it, and we all bought in and whatever, and then we were mad at you for upholding your values 10 years later, that'd be bullshit. But I can get on Amazon Prime TV right now and watch a dude rape another dude in a prison. Or in 4K. Or
order the Anarchist Cookbook.
Or that. Or buy a copy of Mein Kampf. Or,
It's weird that you keep going to, like, the prison rape porn. That's
my point. I was trying to think of something so graphically violent that, like, maybe it should be censored. Like, maybe it should be, but we're going to have a standard here.
At least put it in a section like Amazon behind the curtain, kind of like in the old video rental stores for the adult section.
Sure. Sure.
Not necessarily censored, but
adult-only content. Or
like, we all know it's there.
Right.
But we don't want the youngins getting back there and getting exposed to it.
Right. Hey, listen, if you click on this, just understand, we know you don't have a soul, but we're going to renew your membership anyway. I don't care.
Yeah, we'll take that money.
Yeah. Yeah, any and all of that would make sense. TV, the old rated R, NC-17, the old movie rating system that essentially only exists in nomenclature anymore and really doesn't matter at all, it seems. Fine, apply those kinds of standards, but apply them universally, and don't allow, especially when you allow, if you're talking about political hate speech, when you allow things like pictures of the president being beheaded and rap videos of the president being shot and all various other forms of what would be concerned as liberal, angry violence. And then the minute some white dude in Arkansas says, you know what, I really don't have any black friends, then they turn the whole fucking thing off. It's like, hey, man, you know, come on. There's
Well, and I mean, even at that point, let's specify for the internet overlords that might be stumbling across this, you know, small podcast that Kent and I have both created from scratch and love and adore as our pet project. We are not condoning nor recommending violence be taken against anybody. Quite the opposite. However, I would venture to suggest let it be out there.
So this is an actual argument.
Here's why I say this.
Yeah.
Let that hate, that violent speech, that, you know, idiotic, closed-minded, narrow-minded, you know, racist against whoever, black, white, brown, I don't care what. Let it all be out there. You want to be, you know, homophobic, transphobic, you know, whatever, sexist, racist, you name it. Let it be out there. Let the people who actually think and ascribe to that belief structure be identified.
Yeah, they'll out themselves. It's a self-correcting problem.
Right. And while, of course, not condoning violence in any way, shape, or form, but if you know people like that are out there and they end up and it all comes to light, eventually culture is going to take care of that. When you're not welcome in your local grocery store anymore, when no one's going to work on your car, because even the association with you is going to destroy them.
Yeah. And that's essentially, so what you're talking about is there's probably a percentage of our population somewhere in the single-digit percentages that are vitriolic, evil, violent, terrible people who hate X. They hate conservatives. They hate liberals. They hate whites. They hate blacks. They hate Muslims. They hate gays. They hate straights. They hate, right? I feel like I'm back in the Dave Chappelle haterade stuff. Like, they just hate everybody. And would actually follow through and act upon those things, et cetera, et cetera. And your suggestion is to allow them to come to light so that society can properly ostracize them.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Well, so think about it. So this goes back to my time, doing what I used to do before I got into the IT industry, right? If the enemy, quote unquote, is not talking or moving, we don't know they're there.
Right. Well,
like let that sink in for a second.
Yeah.
If they're not talking and they're not moving, you can't see them. You don't know they're there, and before you know it, they're knocking on your doorstep to overrun your base.
Not only that, but the impressionable, the people who, and man, I'm telling you what, if you've got violence in your heart and you're actually thinking of doing something stupid, please call me first. Like, God almighty. But somewhere there is someone who is impressionable, right?
Yes.
And who could go either way right now. And maybe they go tear apart a gajillion capitals and do stupid things, or maybe they go get their life together and go back to school or something. I don't know. But if you ostracize off of all these platforms, if you remove all the speech you don't like, all you're really doing is taking these people and driving them further and further underground, back to where they used to be 15 or 20 years ago when things were worse in each other's fucking basements, right?
So your point is, just like they could easily be influenced for evil, they could otherwise be influenced for good, because somebody like you or me might see it, because we're at the top. Because if we're not afraid of censorship and we're not afraid of being silenced and shunned without due cause, right?
Exactly.
then we would be in bold, guys like us would be able to speak up and say, hey, dude, it's not cool that you're talking about hurting yourself or other people. I understand you might not agree with, okay, fine. You don't agree. You don't like him because of colors. Fine. That's your belief. But is it really worth fighting them over? Is it really worth drawing blood and hurting other people over?
Right.
If you want to hate people, do it in private. Don't associate with them. Fine. But the way you're thinking is, so you're saying, okay, I see what I'm digging it. I'm digging it. But in the meantime, those of us to your point, let's just say that somebody that is, going to go out of their way to do harm to somebody might be looking at a firearm.
Yep.
Might be involved in a pro firearms group.
Yep.
On Facebook, Twitter, whatever have you. Pick a social media platform.
Yep.
Because those things are there is a higher probability that they would be more likely to come across people like us that might actually be able to befriend them and, talk some sense into their head. But instead, because those platforms are being taken away from us to one extent or another, they're being forced underground. They're being forced to places like the darknet, forced to places like 4chan or whatever the case might be, where not for nothing, but somebody that they're interacting with on those places might actually just be trying to poke and prod them into the way of doing bad things just to get them to do something bad.
Sure. Just
because there are some fucked up people in this world that are willing to do that.
Sure. It's the, you have to take the same approach that a Baptist preacher would take. He wouldn't say, no, man, I'm sorry, but you can't come to church. He'd look at those people and he'd go, nah, you need it worse than anybody else does. Get your ass in here. Let's fix this.
Right.
And that's the only level of hope that we can approach this with, is in one way or another. And I mean, whatever. I know our signal is small, but yet it's big in some ways, man. I mean, we've reached a ton of people just in our 60 some episodes of these, and our combined YouTube and our Facebook and Instagram presences and stuff, and training like I've reached a ton of people in the last couple of years in person, one-on-one. Not every one of them was Stars and Bars Confederate Trump person. Not every one of them was a left-leaning liberal this or that. You have to find people where they are. People are in all kinds of different places, on all kinds of different spectrums. And the more we segment and segregate and divide and frustrate, the less we'll be able to reach across these lines and barriers. And these people will be victims to whatever their local, 50-mile radius is. And if you're some poor kid whose entire family circle and whose entire friendship circle is nothing but an angry, hateful Nazi, then you're probably going to grow up to be an angry, hateful Nazi. No different than if you're in South Central LA, you're probably going to grow up to be an angry, hateful gang member. It's no different. People are oftentimes victims of their circumstance. In many cases, the ones who gained and grew and overcame had some sort of an outside influence that at some point reached them. And we're just going to shut all that off because it doesn't meet political discourse of the day. That's not okay. That's unfair. And I don't want to see it happen. I don't want to see it happen about guns. I don't want to see it happen about mental health and suicide. I don't want to see it happen about other forms of training. This is a part of my life I don't talk a whole hell of a lot about, but I don't want to see it happen for parents of deceased children. Like, there's a lot of people in this world that just sometimes need to hear somebody else is going through something similar that they are and want to talk to each other, right? Maybe continuing to make those rooms smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller is not a good idea. And when we look at it, who does that serve? That level of thinking only serves the political elites who will continue to rule us until we see otherwise.
There is somewhere in here, there is a social experiment that I would love to try.
All right.
Going to various groups and pretending to be like make a fake account and everything.
Yep.
But pretend to be somebody of the opposite side of the argument. Not vehemently against or opposed, right? So if you're, if I'm typically a pro-gun guy, I'm not going to go to a pro-gun group and I'm going to say all guns should be banned. How dare you? But just as a rational, agnostic, right? Because we've got radical fundamentalists on both sides of the argument, regardless of the argument.
Yep.
And then in the middle, and I would dare say a vast majority of the people in the middle are just agnostics. They don't know what to believe. They just know that they should believe something.
Yep.
But they have to take a position on the matter because it directly involves and affects them. So pretending to be one of those people that wanes agnostic, opposed to that group, but do it both sides. So gun group or more right side of the argument group, pretend to be someone who's centrist, maybe a little left leaning, but not beyond the realm of discussion, and then the opposite side and see what happens.
Yeah, man. I would tell you that, and we're all guilty of this. There's gun groups where, if you pop into a gun group and you say, hey guys, I'm just curious, what's the use case for having a 30-round magazine in a rifle? And that's the only thing you post. You will get just
torn apart.
Well,
but see, that's just it. You'll get both. I think you have to take in all the data points that you possibly can.
Oh yeah. But my point is, like, I would think by now it would be known that you and I and our business ventures are both. We do a very good job, and most of the people we associate with do a very good job, and most of the people that we professionally align ourselves with do a very good job, and most of our peers who are truly our peers, not just gun people on the internet, but actually people who are peers of ours, you get one of them, and you're going to get a really well-reasoned, really thorough, great answer. Why do you ask? Is there something I can help you figure out? What are you trying to accomplish? You're going to get a really squared away, really well-reasoned response. What we also have to acknowledge is that you're going to get a lot of crap, right? From any side. I mean, if you went to a super pro-abortion group that was just, babybusters.com, you send them, we blend them is the fucking group's hashtag. Oh my God.
That's fucked up and dark.
If we're going to get thrown out of the fucking, that'll be why. Anywho. Right,
and this is how we got kicked off the internet.
You go into that group and you start saying, like, well, hey, don't you think they have a soul, right? There's going to be a lot of women in that group who had a real terrible life experience and feel pretty bad about what transpired. And yeah, of course, I think those kids had a soul. I think mine did, right? You'll get a real answer. You'll get an honest to God, squared away, straight up answer. I'm sorry, Trey. I'm sorry. But that's what you'll get. You'll get one person will give you you're probably right. And then you'll get, it's my right to choose. Fuck you. You'll just get a beat down. The truth is that in any of these places, our hope would be that the adults in the room outnumber the angry. And and
so the reason, and fair point. I mean, we can agree that you'll get probably an equal response of good and bad from both sides, right? But how many of those have been looked at purely from a non-biased scientific approach?
Oh, right? you mean a real agnostic?
Yeah, well, so you got to look at it too. You're not really the avatar that you create on the internet, right? So if you or I personally were to go into one of these groups and try to have this conversation, we are incapable of separating ourselves from that personal avatar because it is a replication of ourselves in the digital world, right? It
Yeah.
is, we put ourselves emotionally, spiritually, and any other way possible in connection to that room. It's no different than somebody saying it to your face.
Yeah.
But if you put in a dummy, right? Like strap. If I were to tell you, Kent, I want you to strap a stake to your leg and go stand in that lion's cage that we haven't fed for a month, and tell me what you feel.
Yeah.
Okay, but then take a dummy, strap a stake to its leg, throw it in the tiger cage, and tell me what you see.
Yeah.
It'll be easier for you to document a little bit more scientifically what you observe when you are able to separate that emotional connection to your digital presence.
Dude, I've been knowing you for a minute now, and you get smarter, and that's really terrifying.
I like to read banned books on Amazon.
Yeah, that's fucking terrifying. That's a great idea, though.
Yeah,
we could find the dummy.
Hey, Trey.
Yeah.
I only say that because he's in the chat. Got to pick on somebody. Love you, buddy. So we're getting to that point, but I don't want to end this podcast because, again, as the topic explains, the future as we see it, or the foreseen path down the road. Kent, let's touch on what we see from a firearms training aspect.
Oh yeah. Okay. So I said this earlier, right? The good will continue to be the good. There are some of us who are not going to have problems filling classes and booking privates and continuing to grow their businesses and whatever. And there are some people who may or may not have been barely hanging on to begin with from a quality perspective that may probably go by the wayside. If one thing I hope will transpire, and this is a hope, there's a lot of people who are disseminating firearms information on the internet and in training, and maybe even running training companies, just because like the local Amazon warehouse isn't hiring at the moment, so they figure they'll go do this shit for a while, right? I hope when the industry becomes harder to participate in, through supply and demand and everything else, that maybe some of those fair weather people will fade into the distance, and the stronger signal from the people who deserve it may be amplified. I hope. That's a hope, but I could see it happening, right? So that could be good. From the actual, how are we going to train in an ammo crisis perspective? We've been saying dry fire was a thing for a long time. We've been saying sims was a thing for a long time. Force on force matters a lot. And, the other thing I would say is like, geez, if this is the only little stash of ammo you have left, if this is all you got left, is it truly better to spend that stash of ammo, whatever it might be, ping, 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 pinging on the same steel target all day till you're blue in the face? Or is it better investing that money, time, effort, energy, and ammo in actually getting appreciably more skilled with the tool? I would obviously argue the latter, right? I will tell you personally, my course count is actually going to grow this year. I'm going to teach more this year than I did last year. My private lessons are growing. My advanced bookings are growing. My training schedule is fuller. My peers are doing the same things. The people I know that are real dedicated and real serious and have always been are still. I'm getting text messages from dudes. Hey, dude, what classes are we doing this year? Hey, where are we going this year? Hey, where can we this? Where can we that? Let's go. There's a lot of people that are still pushing it, and they're still going to find a way. So I don't see any reason to believe that won't transpire this year. And the other thing is we still haven't even scratched the surface of these 7 million people who just became firearms owners for the first time in the last couple months. I'm working them down 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 10 at a time. When I'm done with all 7 million of them, I'll give you guys a couple. Like, God almighty, there's a need for the new entry-level, intro, beginner, fundamental stuff. And that is where we will find our future. Not with all of them, but in my case, hopefully with enough of them to continue to make a living.
Yeah, man. I mean, I got to be honest, as I look around, so taking my own supply into account, I can say that I have got enough to get me by in an emergency situation. I do not, however, have enough to justify just going out and exercising tactical masturbation.
Right.
Where I just punch holes in paper.
Right.
Currently, I've probably got enough ammo to get through one major class and still have some left over to not overly exhaust that supply. So I like your point, and I agree with your point on, rather than worrying about trying to accumulate enough ammo to go to the range next Saturday or next month,
yep,
worry about getting enough ammo to go to a class 3 months from now, 6 months from now, whatever the case might be. And as much as it would probably be to the detriment of my, I would say, consistency in performance, just going to the range and punching holes in paper is probably going to be lacking this year and probably for the next 2 years. With that being said, dry fire's your friend.
Yep. So
if you're like me, you're not sitting on a couple 100,000 rounds or even a couple thousand rounds. Dry fire's your friend and it's free. Costs you a little bit of time, but that's about it. The second aspect of it also is I'm looking at alternative methods of training. So, fun fact, I made my annual gun purchase for the year. And it was a rimfire. Ruger Precision rimfire, to be precise, in 22 Magnum.
To be precise.
See what I didn't even mean to do that. I'm ashamed of myself. But yeah, I got a Ruger Precision rimfire, bolt action. And I am working on teaching my son the intricacies of long-range marksmanship.
That's awesome.
Right? So maybe breaking out the 22, the 22 pistol, maybe breaking out my 1022 and, encompass with that new bolt action. I still think there's a lot that I can get done with those. And while even the cost of 22 and the availability of 22 is ridiculous right now, it's better than nothing. And I'll be honest with you, I've been kind of toying around with the idea of setting up an airsoft rig.
Yeah.
It's funny when generally people in the tactical Timmy community, that is not named after me, by the way. People in the tactical Timmy community shun airsofters, and then ammo is no longer available. They're like, well, shit, that doesn't seem like such a bad idea.
Yeah, really.
So I have gotten my airsoft on before. There is the largest indoor airsoft arena is here in Nashville. I'll tell you what, this shit hurts. Like you when you get hit. So I think it's viable. I think it's a viable training alternative. I really do.
Here's the other thing, right? When ammo's all a dollar around, you might as well buy Sims.
Yeah, at that point, yeah.
Like, not for nothing, but force on force is something that not enough people do enough anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no excuse not to do it now.
Right.
I'll give a shout out to Phil Groff up my way, Vigor Training. He's doing in March an all force on force 2-day home defense class where the force on force ammo is covered in the course tuition.
Can't argue with that shit.
Just saying. And yeah, it's a little bit more expensive than your typical 2-day class from him. But to be clear, You show up with empty holster. He puts force-on-force gun in your holster and provides you your ammo for the weekend. It's not that hard. And you're going to learn today, because if I know anything, it's when you get Phil in a force-on-force scenario, you're going to learn something. So, fun as well.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so real quick, Jordan is mentioning that he wants a Ruger Precision Rimfire so bad, debating on 22 long rifle or 22 mag. I would suggest, so I had the same mental debate. Actually, when I went into the gun store, I had every intention of buying a 6.5 PRC. However, I had my son with me, and we got to looking around. I looked at the 6.5 PRC options that they had. I liked what I saw. I was on the fence about it. But yeah, in the gun store we were in, they're huge supply. So I'm like, you know what? We had to wait an hour to get into the building, so we might as well take some time and look around and see if there's anything else that strikes our fancy.
Why'd you have to wait an hour?
COVID limitations. They were limiting capacity. In that county, it's understandable. So we waited an hour. Also, it's also 2021. Biden just got elected. It was a Saturday.
Yeah, but wait.
Everything added up. Plus COVID restrictions. Everything added up to a wait.
Biden got elected as the president of America, not Tennessee.
Oh, no, I understand, but the panic that ensued. While you and I agree on that subject, your average citizen that's relatively new to the gun industry is not going to have that same understanding that, hey, dude, yes, you should go get an AR-15 or something like that if you don't have one yet. But, right? Anyway, with that being said, so I already 22 long rifle versus 22 mag. If you're going to compete with it in, say, NRL 22 matches, I would consider going with the long rifle. Still more bang for your buck, no pun intended. Ammo's still a lot cheaper than 22 mag, right? But at the same time, I already had a Ruger 1022, or I still have a Ruger 1022. I'm just missing an optic for it. So I wanted something with a little bit more oomph behind it, so I went with the 22 mag. And worst case, I can use it for coyotes or something on my dad's property. But yeah, that's kind of where that. And the only other option they had was they had the 22 mag in stock, and they had 17 HMR in stock. So 22 mag, getting 1,850 feet per second out of the muzzle, I'll take that.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned they had 17 HMR in stock. I've been in a lot of places, and that seems to be what is still sitting on the shelf.
I refuse to have a bullet chambered in something equivalent to a pellet rifle.
Fine.
Most of your pellet rifle, 17 HMR has its place, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, I can go get a pellet rifle in 17 caliber and it's arguably nowadays get the same performance out of it.
Oh yeah, I understand. I'm just merely pointing out that if you had a bolt action 17 HMR laying around right now, you could feed it ammo pretty easily.
And you can do the same with 22 mag and 22 long rifle. I've been seeing just as much of both, all three on the shelves lately. Now, I will caveat that with internet availability has been scarce.
Yep.
But generally, if you go to your local gun shop, I would still feel confident that you're going to find 22 long rifle and 17 HMR and 22 Magnum. But yeah, I want a little bit more ass behind it. I've got a range where I can shoot out to 1,200 yards. Taking a 22 Win Mag out to 400 or 500 yards. Certainly going to be a good day at the range. So
that's awesome, man.
That thing is wicked suppressed. Oh my God, it's so awesome. It's just a fun gun. I enjoy it.
I couldn't hear you shooting it from here. I know that.
That is true.
So we've established that there is going to be a future.
Yes.
So
it's all in the words of the Hitchhiker's Guide, don't panic.
I will leave you with this. If there's absolutely one thing that's 100% guaranteed in 2021, it's that I have a new batch of dad jokes.
Oh, fuck.
Uh-huh. And you all will be subjected to them. And you will be expected to continue to bring them to classes. So today's is as follows. Why was the baby jalapeno shivering?
Because it was chilly.
This is a little chilly. Now, if that doesn't warm the cockles of your heart until next Tuesday, I don't possibly know what will.
I don't even know. I'm just going to do the ad read now.
You're welcome.
All right. So, Kent, closing comments, man. What training you got coming up? What's going on?
Oh, my God. GreenMountainDefense.com/training. The calendar has been live and then taken down and then live and then taken down.
That's what you get for hosting on Amazon.
No, I've taken it down twice just because I wasn't entirely happy with the way things looked. But the bottom line is this, dudes. We are teaching 9 courses at Tupahawken Rifle and Pistol Club over the next 9 months. That ought to be a clue, 1 a month. We are going to continue to teach a shitload of private lessons. We are offering for alumni only, if you've taken a class from us already, you can buy the private lessons in a pack of 4, a pack of 5 for the price of 4. So that's a 20% discount on your private lessons for an alumni. That SKU is up and live on the web. You can continue to buy private lessons by the hour. You can continue to buy private digital training by the half hour. All of that's still at greenmountaindefense.com/training. We're traveling to North Carolina in August to hang with the crew from Apache Solutions. And we're also going to be teaching handgun fundamentals classes a bunch more times at West Shore Sportsman. So somewhere on the order of 18 to 20 weekend classes over the next 10 months and a bunch of privates. So, yeah, but there better be a future.
Yeah,
otherwise,
man,
I'm going to be standing on a range somewhere by myself going, so anyway. And then I told him.
So why was the little jalapeno cold?
Yeah.
All right, folks. So once again, appreciate you. Another week down, another week done. Keep your heads up, keep your chins up. Everything is going to be okay, I assure you. If it's not, just wait longer. We love an active chat. If this is your first time hearing the sound of our voices, please tell your friends, tell your family, get them over here. Join us for the live chat here on YouTube. Of course, if you missed the live show, you can always catch us on your favorite podcast player. Next week, I am pleased to announce that we have a very special guest returning to the hot seat. The one and only Scott Jedi Jedlinski will be rejoining us here on the podcast after what's been a little over a year now since we've had him on. So it'll be awesome to catch up with him. So set your alarms, set your reminders, hit that little notification bell. That video or that broadcast is already published on YouTube, so you can go hit a reminder for that. Also, stay tuned to social media for more announcements and advertisements for upcoming shows and guests as we get them lined up for you. I would be remiss if I didn't mention our affiliate links, greenmountaindefense.com/affiliate-links. You're going to buy gun stuff anyway. You might as well buy it from our affiliate links. That gets us a little bit of a kickback and helps support the show. Of course, Dark Angel Medical. You shouldn't carry a gun without considering medical. And even if you don't carry a gun, you should carry medical. So darkangelmedical.com, code BB15 will get you 15% off at discount or at checkout, 15% discount at checkout. That doesn't roll off the tongue all that well. But anyway, please be sure to post in the comment section of your order that the Sling'N podcast sent you. Let Kerry Davis over there at Dark Angel know that we love him and care. Let's see. Kent, who am I forgetting?
How about Primary Arms?
Oh, of course. One of our chief affiliates, Primary Arms. They have some great people over there at Primary Arms. We're happy to be friends with many of them. One of which has been on the show, Justin Stewart, a good friend of Kent and mine. has been on. He's a good representative for Primary Arms, and our affiliation with them has certainly been valuable, not just to us, but also to all of you. They frequently have things in stock. They're restocking new items every day. So stay tuned on that. Once again, greenmountaindefense.com/affiliate-links for that. We do have merch, many shirts inspired by recent guests. That's a trend that we're going to try to continue doing. So teespring.com, Sling'N Led Podcast is the storefront. Any monies that we earn from the sale of t-shirts go to charities that have been identified by our various guests. We're happy to do that. I'm actually going to be requesting a payout here soon so we can donate to a couple of the charities that have been identified recently. Other than that, folks, once again, we do appreciate and love you all. Until we see each other again, God bless you all. Take care of each other and get out and shoot.
Bye, everybody.